Welcome to Behind the Campaign, the podcast where marketers pull back the curtain on some of their best campaigns. Today I have with me Amy Higgins. She is the Director of Content Strategy at Cloudflare. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me.
And for those of you who are new around here, Amy and I are old friends. We've been friends for many years through the content marketing space. And so if we get a little, comfortable, it's because we are comfortable with each other. So today we're talking about Cloudflare's security signals report that you did some marketing for earlier this year. Tell me a little bit about how this campaign came about.
So it's kind of funny. We normally do a state of security report using our own data. So Cloudflare, we manage about 20% of the world's internet.
Wow.
And so we get a lot of data. And so we were using our internal data and coming up with a state of security report. We have a new field team, a field CXO team, and they came to play, and they're growing and they're lovely, and I love working with them. But in the planning process, they got their hands on the report, and it switched to more of a thought leadership report. So from a field expertise, here are the things that you should be doing. Here are the questions you need to ask. Here are the steps you need to take. So it shifted from less of a data to more of a thought leadership. And what's also funny is this all happened within about 2 weeks. And it was the 2 weeks I was on vacation.
Of course.
I came back and I was like, wait, I thought we were just editing this. How has it changed so much? It went in the right direction, but it went in the right direction very, very quickly. And so my team was responsible for editing and publishing it, but not so much writing it. So then that changed a lot, and we started editing a lot more of our content than we originally thought.
So it sounds like, did the team come to you with this report? I know it sounds like there was a little bit of a shift in strategy kind of mid doing this. Did they come to
Yeah.
you, or do you normally work with them on this report? How does that all work?
So there is nothing normal. Cloudflare is a growing company. I like to call it a teenager company. We're at that high growth stage. And so things that were normal 5 minutes ago are no longer normal, and things that are going to be normal tomorrow are not going to be normal next week. But originally we were just supposed to edit it, and then the team decided to shift. And so we really managed more of the derivative content off the asset than the full asset itself.
Okay, so what challenges did that present for your team? And can you tell us maybe a little bit about the structure of your team and how they all work together towards this goal?
Yeah, so I have a pretty large team, even though we usually have way too much work to do. I have 8 people underneath me, and they are divided both in breadth and in depth. So I have some people that go really deep in a channel, like people who are just on Cloudflare TV and our podcast series, or people who are just on the net and our thought leadership blog. And then I have some people who just do the SEO documentation and are more content that goes on the web, like our website pages. And then I have a team who are divided across the different content themes. So security or applications or network. And so what happened is the security team was working on this. And then I had to pull in the podcast team and the Cloudflare TV team and pull in the net team. And so what we did is we took, that document was about 60 pages long and very, very small typeface. It's a really, really good document, but it's also very dense. And so we're like, how do we take this dense document and spread it out? So that was our core challenge, because it was already past the finish line and into editing by the time I caught up with it.
So you had it sounds like you maybe had to come up with multiple thought leadership themes maybe to support this one large document.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
Where
how many
before,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say before, we have a visitor. Before, usually that's part of the process. What is our core asset? What are the derivative assets? How do you get that gold thread that goes through all the different assets. And the challenge with this one is we had to switch that in reverse. Here's a core asset. Now, quickly, how do we develop things that go off of it?
So how many different pieces of content did you end up creating, for this one Keystone project?
We did about 12.
Okay. And that
So,
included multiple different formats, I'm assuming print and social, and it sounds like also video and podcast, the whole gamut.
well, if you add in social and you add in print, way more than that. But we created um, 5 key episodes on a new podcast, and that podcast is going to continue throughout the year. But we started the first 5 based on this report. All of those podcasts were actually recorded as part of our TV series, so Cloudflare TV, part of our Executive Perspective series. And then we dove deeper into those subjects that were on the TV series into thought leadership blogs. So one episode on Cloudflare TV had 3 different distribution points or 3 different types of content. So it had the TV, the podcast, and a blog.
Okay, so it sounds like a very distributed strategy for the different themes that you had going with this with this report that you're putting out.
Yeah, and the nice thing that we've seen is we added paid advertisement with our brand team just for the podcast or just for the Cloudflare TV and podcast series. And then we did a lot of social clips, 30-second bites, 2-minute bites that are now being used for demand gen as video ads to help get people to the actual larger ebook.
Going back to what we were talking about early on, when you said there was kind of a shift in how this piece of content was being viewed, it was originally a very data heavy piece and they switched to thought leadership. Do you know the thinking behind that switch and kind of who was driving that? And where I'm kind of going with in my mind about this is, where was there leadership support for doing this switch into more of a thought leadership type of campaign, or was that driven by a team?
It was driven by one of the leadership teams. So Cloudflare is one of the first companies I've worked at that we have a field CXO team. And that team, like we just got a new person today on that team. It can be, at this time, I think the team was about 6 and now it's probably doubled in size. And so we have field CTOs, field CIOs, field CISOs that are all throughout different regions. That will go and talk to our customers and talk at events and webinars. And Fiona will not leave us alone, my cat.
We have a cat. For those of you who are listening by audio, we have a cat entering the picture.
Yeah. Fiona the cat keeps wondering. She's my external
She
team
wants to
member.
learn about the campaign too.
Yeah. Well, she helped, I'm sure. The edits that had the long space bars were from her, not from me.
Came from the cat.
Yeah. I did not fall asleep on my desk, I swear.
So tell me a little bit about what were the challenges, or sorry, what were not some of the challenges, but what were the audiences for the content that you were putting out? Did you have multiple different audiences, and how did your content strategy shift for those different audiences that you may have had for this?
All of them were the CXO audience. So
Okay.
across, for us, that's CISO, CIO, CTO. We also look at the CEO too, depending on companies, but it's very, very thought leadership. We expanded our breadth of audience, but narrowed in the title. So the targeted was all VP and above, but across the entire suite of CISO suite. The topics varied. And so what we did is we varied the topics for our podcast and TV episodes based upon our guest. So we had one key person who's our speaker, who's on the CXTP team, is what they call themselves. We have one key speaker, and then we had different hosts or different guests. And so the guests were either Cloudflare representatives, like we had Steve, who's our lead program developer on Zero Trust. So he was on there with a partner of ours from Accenture. And so we had 3 people. And then we had other times that we just had one person, talking to the host. And then we had another time that we had 2 people. So we changed it up which added a lot of dynamics. We crafted the questions based on what was in the report, but then tailored them based on the audience, um, based on the guest of who came to the table. Because some guests had more expertise than other guests.
Okay. Is Cloudflare TV something that is public or is that something that's internal to your company?
Both. So
Okay.
Cloudflare TV is kind of a trifecta. Cloudflare has a product called Stream, and so Cloudflare TV uses Stream a lot. Um, it's also its own channel. So we have an entire Cloudflare TV website. And then it's also a program. So I think of it as a program of how can we make Cloudflare TV a destination that people want to go to? The surprising thing with this episodic series, is normally Cloudflare TV is our developer heavy audience. And it's people who are very familiar with Cloudflare. Either they use us or they listen to us out of respect and learning, and they find all the information. And Fiona's just going to be a guest now. And Kat's
That's
just going to
fine.
sit here.
She can
Yeah,
chime in.
yeah. Um, and then, so not only, let me backtrack. So Cloudflare TV, normally our customers are our main audience. This one, I think 98% of the listeners are not our customers.
Okay.
So it hit the mark of getting a new audience and creating new engagement for our product and our expertise.
Great. Did this campaign have any legs into any of your other ongoing campaigns? Was there any kind of overlap, or how did it fit in with the rest of your content strategy?
Yeah, it fits into everything that we do on the net. So the net, we do a weekly blog, and it's an editorial blog that also has a monthly newsletter that goes out, and then a quarterly magazine that goes out, and the magazine's gated. And so this is sprinkled in those newsletters and sprinkled in the magazine. Um, and then the episodic series, like I said before, has been spliced and diced for promotion. We also have it spliced and diced for organic social. And the nice part is seeing our guests and our speakers share it on their own social. So giving them, here's a 30-second clip to embed on your LinkedIn. Um, Sometimes they just reshare what each other shares. So it's almost like an old school influencer strategy as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that sometimes when companies are doing collaborations like that, or working with other organizations, sometimes they skip that step of giving the other company content to share to promote as well, because you can both be promoting the content that you're creating to help your end goal. And I think that's really important to make sure that you're doing that. So that's great.
Yeah, our host, Khalid, he said he was at, I think, an event overseas. He was somewhere, and he said he bumped into some colleagues of his who had heard the series, probably from him sharing it on LinkedIn, and said, I love this series so much. How do I become a part of it? And so to me, that feedback is the best, where people are reaching out saying, how do I become a part of this content you're creating? So they're not just listening and engaging, but they're reaching out to be included in the creation.
Yeah, that's great. So
Yeah.
speaking of kind of the results of your work, what can you talk a little bit about what your goals were with this? And I know this was just a couple months ago, so maybe you don't have a lot of data yet, but do you have any data that you can share anecdotally to say, did you meet those goals? Is there something maybe that you learned in the data that you do see coming in that you might think about changing when you do this the next time?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from our data overall from the report as a whole, like, knocked it out of the park. So our landing pages on www, when I look it over, we have a form conversion of about 2%, which means, and two different ways to look at conversion. How many people could see the landing page? So how many impressions on the landing page versus how many people actually filled out the form? Normally it's 2%. We marked it in the first 3 months close to 10%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And industry standard is, I think, more like 3 to 5. Some of my key assets, I would like to have 7 because I'm an overachiever. So the fact that we got 10, I was like, woo! And that was a combined effort, not only of the things that my team did across thought leadership, but everything our demand gen team also did. So totally combined effort there. The Cloudflare TV, I really wanted to look at how do we make this system a destination? How do we create things that are episodic, that have legs, and that continually bring people to come back and learn more? And we knocked that out of the park. So now I have other teams. Success is your own failure at sometimes because you get so successful. People are like, let's do that again. You're like, oh, okay, let me figure out how to do it again. Or let's do more. Um, so we have leaders who want to do more. We have partners who want to do it with us. So that's, incidental success. The visits themselves to Cloudflare TV were 4 times higher in the first 30 days than any of our other episodes, except for maybe birthday week. So we have an innovation week, the week of our birthday, where we give back. So every single day, Cloudflare is adding a new feature for free, and giving back to our customers. And so that was the only one out of all of our videos on Cloudflare TV that is topping the first 30-day mark, above security signals.
Great. Were there any kind of lessons learned in doing this? Aside from make sure the team knows what they're, not your team, but the other teams know what they're doing before they send the content over to you. Are there any other lessons learned from this campaign?
I think a lot of it is just coordination. Um, Cloudflare, like I said, is a teenager company. And so we all are really, really good at our jobs. And the team is an amazing team, but we all are very siloed. And so breaking down those silos, and Fiona, for those of you who are listening, are now on my lap and making faces at the camera. Breaking down those silos and how to do them and how to do planning. So planning and moving fast never really go well together.
Yeah.
So I had to learn a lot of personal growth of, in a perfect world, A happens, then B, then C. And here, sometimes A happens and then Z, and then maybe we go back to Y, and then we go back to B. And so just being okay with that the coordination doesn't happen internally, but externally it still works for everyone.
Yeah. So, is this something that you think you will do again? Is this going to be a yearly thing or biannual?
Oh, it's biannual, but in different ways. So security signal for next year, what it's looking like is we're going to launch it in Q1. There's a big conference that happens every year for the security ecosystem called RSA. I think this year it was in San Francisco and maybe 30,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And to put that in perspective, I think Dreamforce pre-pandemic was like 40 or 50,000. So it fills up the entire
Big.
convention center. Yeah, it's a big conference. So we're trying to launch it as part of that, but then we're expanding it. So we're going to do external data. We're running a third-party survey with leaders, VP level and above. And then we're taking that third-party survey and creating thought leadership around the data points. And then security signals, this year's type of copy, next year will be looped more into our thought leadership. So an entire series on the net. We'll continue to do the podcast and Cloudflare TV episodes, and then we'll bucket those together in a thought leadership magazine, which will be part of the Nets magazine.
Okay. Does your
Yeah.
team have any input into that survey that's going out, or any of these surveys, or is that something that's done by a separate team? I would think maybe the content team might have, some input that would be valuable into something like that.
These annual surveys are my baby.
Okay,
Um,
good.
so I pitched it. So we've done surveys before, external surveys, but we've done them in silos. So like our APAC team has done a fabulous one called the Cyber Readiness Survey. Um, the last one they did was last fall of 2024. Really successful program. EMEA did the same thing, but having two different silos, they didn't feed off each other. So we've taken that to the global team. So I sit on corporate marketing. So I sit on the global team. And now my team runs those. So right now we're actually right in the middle of analyzing our data for our application survey that, knock on wood, is going to launch in about 2 months. And the application survey will follow the same path as the next security survey. And then signal security survey will blow up big for Q1 of next year.
And
So
you do all of
internal
the,
data, sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was going to say security signal will have the internal data, the external data, as well as all the thought leadership.
Okay. And you do this all internally. You don't use any agency support, or do you have some agency folks that you tap into?
So last year, security signals all internal. We tapped in, we have a film crew, that's an agency. We had a film editor, that's an agency. This year, so external, we use, for the external survey, we use an external source. We use Qualtrics to run the reports, but we do the production of the actual assets all in-house. So between my team, the content team, and my coworkers team, the creative team, we're developing that. And then for overflow, we use agency support. So we're doing about 200 assets for this first survey because we have 23 languages,
Oh, wow.
3 different regions, 5 industries. You take the 5 industries, time that by the 3 different regions, then you have 15 industry reports. So all of those reports we're templatizing and then use an agency to help design them. But my content team and our localization team will be in charge of writing them.
With this being global content and you're doing a lot of translation, is there anything that you are changing substantive wise to the assets that you're putting out to target those different audiences and their preferences in different areas, different countries?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at for our CFTV episodes of, it's nice to have one host on a podcast, but unless our podcast can travel around the world and speak different languages, it's kind of hard for it to have one host. So for our application survey, we're starting with our podcast host, Christian Riley, who's located in London. And so we're going to start with EMEA. And then hopefully, I'm still planning it, but hopefully in November, we'll add on our APAC and have one of our APAC hosts be there. And for them to have multiple languages where we can pull in, a Japanese customer or a customer from Singapore or a New Zealand customer, and then bringing it back to the States and having more of a global perspective. Or if we need to have, Latin America perspective, we can bring that into. So it's kind of taking, if you have 30 different topics, instead of producing all 30 different topics in English, splitting them up where we can have the different languages across all the different topics.
And what's your typical time frame or timeline from the time, you start something like this, a project campaign like this, to kind of when you're getting ready to put it out the door? About how long is your time frame for that?
So the last security signals took about 6 months from start to end.
And that includes doing the report itself, like collecting the data, or just the
Well, because we
campaign
did
part?
internal data. Yeah,
Okay.
the internal data in the campaign. The next year, so these global surveys I have been working on since August of last year. So it will be over a year from the time that the thought was sparked and communicated to the actual launch. We're hoping that the campaigns stay in market about 9 months.
Okay.
And so it'll be an annual thing. But this is the very first time that Cloudflare has done them. So a lot of that time is just getting everybody on the same page, gaining buy-in, finding the budget, getting procurement for the agency. I'm hoping in 3 years' time it will just be, second nature to us and we can improve. And right now we're still learning the ropes as we go.
Speaking of improving, is there anything you're going to change for the next time you promote this type of report?
Planning from the beginning. It's definitely improvisation is a thing to improve. Aligning with our global stakeholders. and also making sure that all of our industries are part of the conversation as well. So part of the planning with our surveys that we've been doing is that the gaining buy-in process was reviewing people with our industry expertise and our regional expertise, because public sector government in America is completely different than government in France. But if we're asking one question for two different audiences, is it relative enough that we get good data, but is it broad enough that we can do it for both? And so
Yeah, that's a
that's a
good
lot
point.
of the timing. Yeah.
Yeah. So and how many industries are you working with?
Well, right now our surveys have 5 different industries, but we
Okay.
probably have about 13 or 14 different industries that we're targeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
That's
like a
my other
great.
trick.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of moving pieces, and this is just one campaign out of, however many you have going on at any given point in
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience about this campaign and kind of, your experience with it, and anything else, any closing comments that you'd like to add?
Hmm. I don't know. I think it's always be learning and um, be comfortable with shifting.
Yeah.
So if things don't work, they say fail fast. Cloudflare has a get shit done GSD mentality, which is a plus and a minus. The plus is you move forward, you fail fast. The minus is sometimes the silos happen because the coordination and the planning together just can't happen fast enough. So I would say the one key thing is get your core team together as quickly as possible and let them have the stake in the ground that they go out to other people.
Yeah,
So instead of having 20 people.
core teams are so important. I did the same thing in my last role when I led content operations. It's like you need that. Too many cooks in the kitchen is never a good thing, right? You want those key people, maybe one person from each, function or group that you need, and let's, like you said, move fast, break things, get shit done, and move on. So I think that's a great lesson learned on this. So, well, thank
Yeah,
you very much for joining
of
me
course.
today, and I will actually see you at Content Marketing World in, oh gosh, it's a little over a month, like 5 weeks, I think. Well, from the
Oh,
time we're recording. So, yeah. So, hopefully, we'll see some of our listeners or watchers at Content Marketing World as well. And we will see you in the next episode. Thanks, Amy.
that sounds great. Thanks, Andy.